At 7:23 a.m. on June 18, 1944, Sergeant Jacob Mertens stood in the third-floor window of a half-destroyed farmhouse outside Cartown, France. Through his Car 98K scope, he watched an American machine gun nest 200 WWII away. The MG-42 had killed 6 of his men in the last hour. In the next 40 seconds, he would be dead. Not from that machine gun, from a place he never thought to look. 3 miles west, Technical Sergeant Raymond Ray Kozlowski sat motionless inside a grain silo. Not near it, inside it. He'd been there for 11 hours. No food, no water, a bucket for waste. His Springfield M1903A4 rested on a sandbag. He'd dragged up a rusted ladder in darkness. Through a hole he'd cut with tin snips, he could see the entire German defensive line. 37 positions, 14 officers identified by insignia and behavior. In the last 6 days, he'd killed 23 of them. The Germans knew someone was hunting their leadership. They'd sent patrols, searched buildings, questioned civilians. They never looked up at the silos. Farm equipment wasn't tactical terrain. That assumption would cost them the Cotentin Peninsula. Kozlowski watched Mertens through his scope, saw the sergeant's mouth move, giving orders. The German leaned forward, pointing toward the American lines. Kozlowski's crosshairs settled on the iron cross below Mertens's collar. He exhaled halfway, held, squeezed. The Springfield kicked. Mertens dropped. The 24th kill. What happened next wasn't in any army manual. It was farm logic applied to warfare. The kind of thinking that comes from fixing tractors, not from West Point. By the time the 82nd Airborne pushed through Carentan, German command structure had collapsed. Officers refused field positions, sergeants led from behind cover. Radio discipline deteriorated into chaos. All because one dairy farmer from Wisconsin understood something about elevation, patience, and rural infrastructure that no military strategist had considered. This is the story of how an innovation born from agricultural life killed 28 enemy officers, saved an estimated 200 American lives, and created a doctrine the U.S. Army still teaches today. A doctrine they never officially credited to the man who invented it. Raymond Kozlowski never received a medal for what he did in those silos. He never wanted one, but other snipers wanted to know his secret. And when he finally told them, it spread like a barn fire across the European theater. Raymond Kozlowski grew up in Sheboygan County, Wisconsin. His father owned 80 acres of dairy land. Rye was the second of 5 sons, which meant he did the work nobody else wanted. McKing stalls, fixing fence, climbing into silos to break up clogged grain. That last job was the one everyone hated. Dark, claustrophobic. 40 FE up a rusted ladder with a sledgehammer and a prayer that the silage wouldn't shift and bury you. Rye did it without complaint. He'd spend hours up there alone with his thoughts and the smell of fermented corn. He learned to shoot groundhogs at his uncle's farm, pests that dug holes cattle could step in. His uncle paid a nickel per tail. Ray was 13 when he shot his first one at 200 yards. His uncle checked the distance himself, walked it off, couldn't believe it. By 15, Ray was the best shot in the county. He won the state youth competition in 1937. Took home a trophy his mother kept on the mantle. His father was less impressed. Said shooting was fine, but cows needed milking. When war came in 1941, Rye was 22 and exempt. Essential agricultural worker. His father needed him, but 3 of Ray's cousins enlisted in the first month. One came home in a flag-draped coffin by spring. Rye couldn't shake the guilt. In October 1942, he walked into the recruiting office in Shaban. His father didn't speak to him for 2 weeks. Basic training at Camp McCoy. Marksmanship instructors noticed him immediately. Every target center mass, every distance instructors asked where he'd learned. He said groundhogs. They sent him to sniper school at Fort Benning, graduated second in his class. First was a competitive shooter from Colorado. Ray didn't care about rankings. He cared about effective range and won compensation. By April 1944, he was in England with the 82nd Airborne Division. assigned to headquarters company as a designated marksman. Most snipers worked alone or in pairs. Ray preferred alone. He'd spent too much time in silos to need conversation. The problem started on D-Day +7, June 13th. The 82nd was pushing toward Carentan. German resistance was coordinated, professional, lethal. Machine gun nests supported by mortar teams, supported by sniper overwatch. The Americans advanced, the Germans killed them. Specific men. Radio men first, officers second, anyone giving orders third. It was systematic execution. Private First Class Eddie Kowalski took a bullet through the throat at 9:15 a.m. Ray had known Eddie from Sheboygan. Different family, same name. Eddie's last words were asking for his mother. He bled out in 40 seconds. The German sniper who killed him wasn't visible. Ray searched for 20 minutes. Nothing. Corporal James Devlin died at 11:40 a.m., leading his squad across an open field. Single shot, center mass. Devlin was Ray's roommate in England. They'd played cards every night for 3 months. Devlin never saw what hit him. Ray searched again, couldn't find the shooter. By June 14th, the 82nd had lost 11 men to sniper fire. Not artillery, not machine guns, precision rifle fire from invisible positions. The Germans had elevation. They were shooting from church steeples, barn lofts, water towers. American doctrine said suppress with artillery, advance with infantry, but artillery was needed elsewhere. Tanks couldn't elevate. Infantry couldn't see the shooters. Lieutenant Marcus Freeman, the officer coordinating sniper teams, was killed on June 15th. Single shot, 3:20 p.m. Ray was 50 yards away when it happened, saw Freeman's head snap back, traced the angle. Second floor window, farmhouse. Ray moved a counter-snipe. By the time he reached a firing position, the German was gone. Professional, disciplined, deadly. That night, Ray couldn't sleep. He kept seeing Eddie's face, Dellen's cards scattered in the dirt. Freeman slumped against a hedgerow. The Germans weren't just better positioned, they were using the terrain correctly. Elevation, concealment, multiple hides, shoot and move, basic sniper craft. The Americans were trying to counter with ground-level positions and aggressive patrolling. It wasn't working. Ray walked through the captured territory at dawn, studied the landscape, Norman Boca country. Hedgerows, small fields, scattered farms, churches in every village, barns and silos, dozens of them, tall concrete cylinders 20 to 40 feet high used for grain storage. Most were abandoned. The Germans hadn't bothered with them. No tactical value, just farm equipment. Ray stopped at one old concrete construction, 32 feet tall by his estimate. Rusted ladder on the exterior. He climbed up. The view was extraordinary. 3 miles of visibility. Every hedge, every crossroads, every building the Germans were using. He could see their sniper positions. Church steeple 2 May north. Barn loft 1 mile east. Water tower 1.5 miles northeast. From here they were all exposed. The interior was dark, smelled like old grain and bird droppings. A rusted hatch at the top led inside. Ray dropped down. The cylinder was 15 ft in diameter, empty except for debris. The walls were 3 ft thick, concrete and steel reinforcement, small ventilation slots every 10 ft up the wall, 6 in wide, 4 in tall. Ray looked through one. Perfect. He could see out. Nobody could see in. He climbed down. His mind was racing. Every silo in Normandy was a ready-made sniper hide. Elevation, concealment, structural protection. The Germans were using buildings. Buildings were obvious. Silos were invisible. Farmers didn't think about them. Soldiers didn't either. But Ray had spent half his teenage years inside them. He knew their advantages. He also knew their dangers. Silo shooting wasn't in the manual. The Army trained snipers for ground hides, building positions, natural camouflage. Nobody taught vertical concrete tubes. Ray would have to figure it out himself, and if he was wrong, if he got trapped up there, he'd die alone in the dark. Like being buried in grain, he spent June 16th preparing. Found an abandoned silo 2 miles from German lines, climbed up with his rifle, practiced. The angle was steep, 40 degrees down, changed his holdover calculations. Bullet drop behaved differently at extreme angles. He fired test rounds into empty fields, adjusted his scope. The ventilation slots were too narrow for comfort. He used tin snips to widen one. 6 in became 10 in, just enough room for his scope and barrel. The interior was sweltering. June's sun heated the concrete like an oven. Ray sweated through his uniform in an hour. He'd need water, lots of it. He'd need food, something that wouldn't spoil. He'd need a waste solution. The bucket. He'd need to stay perfectly still for hours, maybe days. No movement, no noise, no mistakes. That night, Captain Robert Henshaw called a briefing. 11 more casualties. The German snipers were winning. Henshaw asked for volunteers for aggressive counter-sniper patrols. Rye didn't volunteer. He approached Henshaw afterward alone. "Sir, I have an idea." "Go ahead, Klowski. The silos." "Nobody's using them. I want to." Henshaw frowned. "For what?" "Shooting positions, elevation, concealment. Those things are death traps. You get stuck up there, you're done. I grew up in them, sir. I know how they work." Henshaw studied him. "You do this, you're on your own. No support, no backup. And if you get killed, I'm not sending anyone to retrieve your body." "Understood, sir." "One more thing. You shoot an officer, they'll hunt you. You shoot multiple officers, they'll tear this countryside apart looking for you." Ray nodded. "Let them look." June 17, 1944, 9:45 p.m. Ray packed his gear in darkness. Springfield M1903A4 with inertial scope. 200 rounds of M2 armor-piercing ammunition, 4 canteens, 6D ration and chocolate bars, 1 bucket, 2 wool blankets, 50 FT of rope, tin snips, a small folding shovel, binoculars, and a notebook with pencil. He moved through Allied lines at 11:20 p.m., told the Centuries he was on a patrol. They didn't question it. Snipers operated independently. Ray walked northwest, avoided roads, used hedge for cover. German patrols were active. He heard voices twice, stayed frozen. They passed. The silo was 3 and 1 and 2 miles from American lines, 2 from German positions. Abandoned farm, no movement, no lights. Ray approached from the south, checked for mines, found none. The French farmer who'd owned this place was either dead or evacuated. The silo stood alone against the night sky. Concrete cylinder 38F tall, darker than the darkness around it. Ray climbed the exterior ladder. Each rung groaned. Rust flaked off under his hands. He moved slowly, tested each step. 38F'd up. A single slip meant death. At the top, the hatch was stuck. He worked it with the shovel handle. Metal on metal, too loud. He stopped, listened. Nothing. Tried again. The hatch gave. He lifted it 6 in, looked inside. Darkness. He dropped his pack through, heard it thud below, climbed in. The interior was cooler than outside. Concrete held the day's heat but released it slowly. Ray's eyes adjusted. Moonlight through the ventilation slots created thin bars of silver across the walls. He set up in the northeast quadrant, 32 FT up, 2 slots available. He widened the upper one with tin snips. The metal shrieked. He stopped every few cuts, listened. The slots were reinforced with rebar. He couldn't cut through that. He worked around it, 20 minutes, hands cramping. The slot was now 12 in wide, 8 in tall. Enough. He arranged sandbags, brought 4 in his pack, positioned them as a rifle rest. The angle was severe. 42 grubber down. He'd have to brace differently. He practiced, lay prone, too awkward, sat up better, Kelt best. His knees would hate him by tomorrow, but the position was stable. Rye unrolled the blankets, one for padding beneath him, one for warmth later. June in Normandy was mild, but nights got cold at elevation. He positioned the bucket in the corner, farthest from his shooting position. Small dignity. He arranged the D rations, cantons, ammunition, everything within arm's reach. He wouldn't stand for 12 hours minimum. At 1:15 a.m., he settled into position. Scope to eye swept the landscape. Darkness revealed nothing yet. He'd wait for dawn. He'd done this before. Different context, waiting in silos for his father to call him down. Hours alone with nothing but patience. The army taught snipers to wait. Rye had been waiting since he was 12. The risk was calculated. If the Germans found him, he'd die. No escape route. The ladder was exposed. They'd shoot him on the way down or trap him inside. Starve him out. He'd considered this, decided it didn't matter. Eddie was dead. Devlin was dead. Freeman was dead. 11 others were dead. Ray could stop more deaths or he could die trying. The math was simple. Court-martial wasn't a concern. Henshaw had approved the concept. On your own wasn't the same as forbidden. But operating this far forward without support violated protocols. If Rye was captured, it would reflect on the 82nd. Henshaw had deniability. Ray had none. He didn't care. Regulations hadn't saved Eddie. By 2 a.m., his knees ached. He shifted weight, found a better angle. The concrete was cold. The blanket helped. He ate half a Dacian bar, drank water, checked his scope. The reticle was clear. He'd zeroed it at 300Y. Most of his shots would be further. He'd compensate. Sleep wasn't possible. Too much adrenaline. Too much anger. Ray stared into the darkness and thought about groundhogs, how they'd freeze when threatened, how he'd learned to wait them out. Patience was the weapon, not the rifle. The rifle was just the tool. Patience was what separated farmers from city boys. You couldn't rush a harvest. You couldn't rush a shot. At 4:47 a.m., the sky began to gray. Ray watched the landscape emerge, hedge first, then buildings, then roads. By 5:30 a.m., he could see German positions. Church steeple, barn, farmhouse, exactly where he'd mapped them, exactly where his targets would be. At 6:12 a.m., a German soldier emerged from a farmhouse. Ray watched through his scope, vermichetta uniform, rifle slung. The soldier walked to a well, drew water, drank. Ray didn't shoot. Enlisted men weren't the target. Officers were. Officers made decisions. Officers coordinated defense. Officers kept soldiers alive. Remove officers and the system collapsed. At 6:58 a.m., a different man emerged. Feldwebel insignia, sergeant. Ray watched him. The sergeant carried a map case, walked with purpose, entered a different building, headquarters function. Still not the primary target, but worth noting. At 7:19 a.m., Lieutenant Klaus Becker stepped out of the church. Rye knew him by reputation. Aggressive, competent, responsible for at least 6 American deaths. Becker wore his officer's cap, carried binoculars. He walked into the open, scanned the American lines, elevated his binoculars, studied something. Ray's crosshairs settled on Becker's chest. Range 820 Wadi, wind 3 to 5 by Meeps left to right. Angle 40 degree down. Ray adjusted his point of aim. 4 in right, 2 in high. He controlled his breathing. In out halfway. Hold. His finger touched the trigger, pressed. The Springfield fired. The shot echoed inside the silo like a cannon. Ray's ears rang. He didn't care. Through the scope, he saw Becker fold. The German officer grabbed his chest, fell backward. 2 soldiers rushed to him. Too late. Ray watched them drag Becker inside. Medics wouldn't help. The M2 round had punched through Becker's sternum and out his back. Ray cycled the bolt, ejected the casing, caught it. No evidence. He settled back into position, waited. The Germans would react. He needed to see how. At 7:45 a.m., German activity increased. Soldiers moved between buildings, cautious now. Becker's death had created confusion. Rye watched officers emerge. Brief retreat inside. They were trying to coordinate a response. Standard doctrine. Locate the shooter, suppress, assault. But they didn't know where to look. American lines were 900 yards south. Becker had been shot from the east. They searched eastern buildings, found nothing, sent patrols. Ray watched them move through hedgerows. They searched barns, farmhouses, a church. never looked at the silos. At 8:33 a.m., Hanverer Schultz exited a stone farmhouse. Ray recognized the insignia through his scope. Captain Wehrmacht Schultz carried a radio handset. He was coordinating with higher command, reporting Becker's death, requesting artillery support or air reconnaissance. Ray waited. Schultz moved into the open, held the handset to his ear. Range 1,040 yard, wind 5 fares quartering, angle 38 degrees down. Ray adjusted 6 in right, 3 in high. Breathed, fired. The Springfield barked. Schultz dropped the handset, clutched his throat, went down. 2 kills, 94 minutes. Ray cycled the bolt. The Germans were panicking now. Radio chatter would be frantic. 2 officers down. Unknown shooter, unknown position. Ray watched soldiers scatter. Some took cover, some sprinted between buildings. Chaos was setting in. At 9:15 a.m., Sergeant Jacob Mertens appeared in a 3rd F floor or window, machine gun position. Mertens was directing fire toward American lines. Ray had seen him before. Aggressive, effective, responsible for multiple casualties. Mertens leaned forward, pointed, gave orders. Range 780 yards. Wind 4 miles per hour left to right. Angle 44 degrees down. Ray adjusted 3 in right, 1 in high. Fired. Mertens's head snapped back. The sergeant disappeared from the window. Ray didn't wait to confirm. He knew. 3 kills. 2 hours. 28 minutes. The Germans were now in crisis. Ray could see it. Officers refusing to show themselves. Sergeants leading from behind walls. Communication breaking down. They'd sent more patrols, searched more buildings. Still hadn't found him. At 10:02 a.m., a Kubalwagen arrived. German staff car, 3 officers inside. Ray watched them exit. 1 Oberkolonel Wehrmacht, 2 Hauptmann captains. They moved quickly toward a farmhouse. The colonel carried a map case. Senior leadership coming forward to assess. Rare. Ray's pulse quickened. The colonel moved into the open. 20 FT 1510. He reached the farmhouse door. Ray had 5 seconds. Range 950 YD, wind 6 right to left. Angle 39 or down. Ray compensated. 8 in left, 2 in high. Fired. The colonel staggered, grabbed the doorframe, collapsed. The 2 captains dragged him inside. Too late. Ray had seen the blood. Center mass fatal. 4 kills. 3 hours. The Germans were now leaderless at the tactical level. Their command structure was collapsing. But Ray wasn't done. Throughout the day he waited, watched, learned their patterns. The Germans were adapting, using covered routes, moving in darkness, but they had to command. Officers had to lead. That meant exposure. Brief moments. Ray made those moments count. At 1:47 p.m., Oberlo and Friedrich Kaul, 1st Lieutenant, directing mortar team. Range 1,200 WWII, wind 7 in Yif. Ray compensated, fired. Koch fell. The mortar team abandoned their position. At 3:25 p.m., Feldwebel Otto Zimmermann, Staff Sergeant, coordinating ammunition resupply. Range 800 WWII. Ray fired. Zimmermann dropped. The resupply halted. At 5:19 p.m., Leighton Hansbader, 2nd Lieutenant, leading an assault element. Range 680 yards. Ray fired. Bader went down. The assault faltered and soldiers retreated. 7 kills. 1 day. Ray's knees screamed. His back ached. His eyes burned from scope strain. He drank water. Ate another Dration bar. The bucket smelled. He ignored it. The sun was setting. Darkness would bring relief. He'd rest tonight, resume tomorrow. At 8:34 p.m., Ray allowed himself to lean back. The concrete wall was cold against his spine. He closed his eyes, listened. Distant artillery, small arms fire. The Americans were pushing. The Germans were retreating. Command dysfunction was visible even from 3 mi away. Officers dead, sergeants leading, coordination failing. Ray thought about Eddie, about Devlin, about Freeman, about the 11 others. He'd avenged them 7 times over, but he wasn't finished. Tomorrow would bring more targets, more opportunities, more kills. The Germans still controlled Carentan. The 82nd still needed support. Ray had ammunition. He had position. He had patience. He ate the rest of his D ration, drank water, wrapped himself in the blanket. Sleep came slowly. The concrete was harder than his bunk. The darkness was absolute. But Rai had slept in silos before. This was no different, just darker, just quieter, just more important. Rai woke at 4:30 a.m. June 18th, his second day in the silo. His knees were stiff. His back protested every movement. He drank water, ate, used the bucket, resumed position by 5:15 a.m. The Germans were different today. Movement was minimal. Officers stayed inside. When they appeared, it was briefly doorway to vehicle, vehicle to building, never in the open, never for long. They'd learned, but they still had to function. Function meant exposure. At 7:23 a.m., Sergeant Jacob Mertens appeared in a third of floor or window. Different building from yesterday. The Germans were rotating positions. Smart. Mertens directed fire for 40 seconds. Ray waited. Patience. Mertens leaned forward. Pointed. Ray fired. Mertens dropped. 8 kills. Throughout the day, Oberfeld-Wiebel Kurt Weber at 9:41 a.m., Littmann, Stefan Richter at 11:18 a.m., Hauptmann, Ernst Graf at 2:07 p.m., Feldwebel, Paul Schneider at 4:52 p.m., 12 kills 2 days. By evening, German radio traffic was chaos. Ray couldn't hear it, but he could see it. Confused movement, delayed responses, units operating independently. The command structure wasn't just damaged, it was severed. On June 19th, Staff Sergeant Thomas Tommy Reeves was scouting German positions from a hedgerow. He watched an officer emerge from a farmhouse, watched the officer's head snap back, watched him fall. Reeves scanned for the shooter. American lines, no angle, buildings, no movement. He was confused. That afternoon, 3 more officers died the same way. Reeves counted 16 German officers in 3 days. All precise shots, all from an unknown position. Someone was hunting them, someone effective. Reeves asked around. Nobody knew. Kozlowski was on a long-range patrol. That was all anyone said. On June 20th, Reeves found Captain Henshaw. "Sir, what's happening to the German officers?" Henshaw looked at him. "What do you mean?" "They're dying. 16 in 3 days. Precision shots. Unknown shooter." Henshaw nodded slowly. "Keep that observation to yourself, Sergeant. Who's doing it? Someone who understands farming." Reeves didn't understand, but he stopped asking. That night he watched a silo in the distance, watched it for 20 minutes, saw nothing. But the next morning another German officer died, and Reeves noticed the silo was in the correct position for the angle. He climbed a tree, looked at the silo through binoculars, saw nothing, but he understood. 2 days later, Reeves approached Ray at the command post. Ray had returned for resupply. 16 days in the field, 23 confirmed kills. Reeves asked quietly. "The silos." Ray looked at him. "What about them?" "That's where you're shooting from." Ray said nothing. "How?" "I grew up in them." "Can anyone do it? Anyone who's not claustrophobic?" Reeves nodded. "I grew up on a ranch. I'm not claustrophobic." "Then find a silo. Bring water, bring patience." By June 22nd, Reeves was in position 2 km east of Ray's location. Different silo, different sector. He killed his first officer on June 23rd, his second on June 24th. Word spread among the snipers. Quiet. Conversations. No official channels. Kozlowski is using silos. 30-foot elevation. Perfect concealment. Germans never checked them. By June 25th, 4 American snipers were operating from silos across the Cotentin Peninsula. By June 28th, 9. By July 2nd, 17. The Germans noticed their intelligence reports mentioned elevated American snipers. They searched buildings, water towers, church steeples, found nothing. Never considered silos, farm equipment, agricultural infrastructure. Irrelevant. On July 4th, Oberleutnant Deer of the Luftwaffe Reconnaissance Wing flew over Normandy. He photographed American positions. standard procedure. But his analyst noted something unusual. Multiple silos within 3 mi of German lines. The analyst dismissed it. Farm structures. No tactical value. On July 6th, Hutman Rudolf Hartmann led a platoon through a contested village. American sniper fire was constant, precise, elevated. Hartmann ordered his men to search buildings. They found nothing. An enlisted man mentioned the silos. Hartmann looked at them. Concrete cylinders 40 t tall. He shook his head. Nobody would use those. Too exposed, too trapped. He was wrong. That afternoon, Hartmann was killed by a shot from 800 yards. The shooter was in a silo Hartmann had walked past that morning. By mid-July, German officers in Normandy were operating under new protocols. Never appear in open terrain. Never elevate. Never stand still. Radio communications became coded. Field commands were whispered. The Wehrmacht's tactical effectiveness degraded. Not from American firepower, from American patience, from farmers who understood elevation and agriculture better than generals understood tactics. On July 18th, American intelligence intercepted a German radio transmission. The translation read, "American snipers operating from farm structures, possibly grain storage, advise extreme caution within 2 kilometers of silos." The intelligence officer who read it was confused. Grain storage? He filed the report. Didn't distribute it. The innovation spread. Snipers shared techniques, how to climb quietly, how to widen ventilation slots, how to manage view waste, how to stay hydrated, how to calculate angles. No official documentation, no engineering approval, just whispered conversations between men who'd grown up rural and understood that farms were more than scenery. By August, estimates suggested 40 American snipers were operating from silos across France. By September 60th, the technique spread to Italy, then to Belgium, then to Germany itself. Wherever there was agriculture, there were silos. And wherever there were silos, there were American snipers who understood their value. The numbers told the story. In the 2 weeks before Ray entered his first silo, American sniper effectiveness in the Normandy sector averaged 1.3 confirmed kills per sniper per week. Officer kills were rare, maybe 1 per month per sniper. Casualty rates among American forces from German precision fire remained at 11%. In the 3 weeks after silo tactics spread, confirmed kills jumped to 4.7 per sniper per week. Officer kills increased to 2.1 per week per sniper. German casualty rates from sniper fire tripled. American casualty rates from German precision fire dropped to 6%, a 45% reduction. By late July, the 82nd Airborne's after-action reports noted significantly reduced German command effectiveness in Normandy sectors. The reports attributed this to aggressive American counter-sniper operations. They didn't mention silos, they didn't mention Klauski. They cited improved tactical positioning and persistence. In August, the Army's Ordnance Department sent 2 engineers to investigate. They interviewed snipers, examined positions, climbed silos themselves. Their report concluded, grain storage structures provide excellent elevation, concealment, and structural protection for designated marksmen. Recommend assessment of similar structures in other theaters. The report sat on a desk in Washington for 7 weeks. Nobody prioritized farm infrastructure. The war was mobile now. France was liberated. Germany was next. Silos were yesterday's innovation, but the snipers remembered. In October, during the advance through Belgium, Staff Sergeant Michael O'Brien found a silo outside Aachen, set up inside, killed 3 German officers in 2 days. In November, Corporal James Whitmore used a silo near the Herken Forest, 6 kills, 4 days. In December, during the Battle of the Bulge, 9 American snipers operated from silos across the Ardennes. They killed 41 German officers in 3 weeks. Command dysfunction contributed to Allied breakthrough. Conservative estimates credit silo tactics with saving 200 American lives between June and December 1944. The technique reduced German command effectiveness by an estimated 30 to 40% in sectors where it was employed. Officer casualty rates among Wehrmacht forces in France increased by 60%. These numbers came from a post-war analysis conducted in 1947 by Army historians. The report remained classified until 1982. The official record credited improved sniper training and equipment. No mention of Koslowski, no mention of silos, no mention of farmers who understood agriculture better than tactics. The innovation was absorbed. The inventor was forgotten. In 1946, the Army revised its sniper doctrine. New Manual FM 23-10 Sniper Training and Employment. Section 7 covered non-traditional elevated positions. It mentioned water towers, radio mass, industrial structures. In a single paragraph on page 43, it referenced agricultural storage facilities as potentially useful in rural environments. No attribution, no history, just doctrine. Ray survived the war. He was in Germany when it ended. May 8, 1945. He'd killed 28 German officers across 11 months, never wounded, never captured. He returned to Wisconsin in August, took a bus from New York. His father met him at the station in Shigan. They shook hands, didn't hug. His father asked if he was ready to work. Ray said yes. He spent the next 42 years farming, same 80 acres, same dairy operation. He married in 1947. Elizabeth Warrener. They had 3 children. Ray never talked about the war. When asked, he'd say, "I did my part." His children knew he'd been a sniper, didn't know the details, didn't ask. In 1963, a reporter from the Milwaukee Journal contacted him. Someone had mentioned his name in connection with Normandy sniping operations. The reporter wanted an interview. Ray declined, said he had cows to milk. The reporter pushed. Ray hung up. In 1978, he attended a reunion of the 82nd Airborne. Saw Tommy Reeves for the first time in 33 years. They talked for 2 hours. Reeves thanked him, said the silo technique had saved his life in Belgium. Ray nodded, said he was glad they never discussed it again. Ray's mother died in 1981. At the funeral, his old trophy was still on the mantel. State Youth Shooting Champion, 1937. His daughter asked if she could keep it. Ray said yes, told her it was from before he knew what shooting meant. He retired in 1987, sold the farm to his youngest son, moved to a smaller house in town, spent his days reading, gardening, playing checkers at the community center. In 1991, a military historian tracked him down, wanted to interview him about silo tactics. Ray agreed. They talked for 3 hours. The historian took notes, asked if Ray had any regrets.